What is it about genre shows that appeals to you as an actor?
They keep offering them to me.
Apart from that.
I don't know. I have no idea at all. I don't only do that. I've been back on stage a couple of times recently doing non-genre shows. I just finished playing Henrik Ibsen in a play in New York, so that's not... Well, no. I don't know. I don't know what it is. What is it? Tell me.
What do you enjoy? Obviously, you enjoy the experience, but...
Well, here's probably the best answer to that is that I am offered really interesting and complex characters. I don't actually think of them as being part of a genre. I actually don't think in those terms at all. But they're fascinating characters given the freedom to roam into extremes of behaviour. And that's what Walter was, and to some extent that's what Henry Parrish and Denethor were. They're all extremes of normal behaviour, but to extremes, and that's, to me, that's a joy to work in that area.
How do you feel about the direction of Sleepy Hollow, how it's going?
Let me say that Sleepy Hollow has got a third season. There have been massive changes. It struggled in the second season. We all know that. But certainly Fox believed in enough to say, look, we will give you another season. I won't be there. Katja Winter won't be there. Orlando Jones won't be there. And there's a new showrunner. And they've got a very simple brief to reboot the show, go back to concentrate on the Ichabod Abbey thing, which was the strength of it in the beginning. And I'm so hopeful that it'll come back, because it did lose its way. Yeah.
What did you feel about your role and how they took? Was it strange having to play the child of people?
Oh no, no, I'm very childlike. I loved the first season. I thought the first season was fantastic, and the second season, I don't know. I just wondered what was going on. I really wondered what was going on, and I used to spend a long time sitting around not doing anything. But the first season was an absolute joy, and the people that created it, Roberto Urchi again and Alex Kurtzman, are dear friends, and I was so happy to work with them again, and I will again, have no doubt, just that one had run its race for me.
In Fringe, the people played multiple characters all the time, but Walter was a multiple character every 5 minutes. For you as an actor, how tough was it? Like from 1 minute being upset to crazy to angry and to being like a father figure?
Just like a real human being, aren't we? Because that's what we like. We change like quicksilver in our moods and the chemicals that run through our bodies creating different sensations. But also Walter got to play, I think, 13 or 14 iterations of himself. Not only the Walter in it, which was very well known, but even within the main story, flashbacks, flash forwards, and then there was a period where he didn't have a brain, and a period where he didn't have a son, and so they were interesting to track. And I used to have to say to my friends, the camera operators, I say, "Can you tell me if I'm in the wrong character, please?" Because it all happened so fast. There's not a lot of preparation time. There was one point where, beginning of season 4, I think, where Peter actually wasn't part of the picture. He disappeared and was never there. But Walter was still there. And I thought, well, he won't be the same man without the hope of a son. So what's he going to be like? I said, okay, he's going to be OCDC. And so I plotted all these things out of walking in straight lines and going around this. And I'd have to say to the camera, just make sure that I'm doing this and not going back to the other one. I was so pleased when that ended because it was miserable not having the hope of a son.
I think my favourite version of Walter was in the episode Brown Betty,
the
musical episode. I love seeing it.
The opening scene of that. Oh my Lord!
Candyman song with the singing corpses.
Oh God, that was funny. There's a few of those. There's a few. Walter took LSD once, and he was seeing little dancing people around the place.
Black Umbrella LSD.
Yeah, that's right. And so he had. And obviously, I don't know how to do those things, so I had to ask people what to do. But I had plenty of people giving me advice, I can tell you.
Wasn't that the great thing about Fringe, though? It's kind of knew it was a sci-fi show, and it could get away from those things because the fans enjoyed it. Did you enjoy knowing that you could have these crazy episodes every so often? No.
Loved it. I loved it. And, the more that the writers and I got to know each other, the more that they would present things to me, and the more I'd say yes, and then I'd add a little bit, so they'd build that in. So it was a beautiful collusion, a creative collusion. Doesn't always happen, but in that one it did. That's why it's such a special role for me. Thank you.
In the episode set in 1985, how much was makeup and how much was like visual effects when it came to like making you look a lot younger for that?
That was quite tricky. Well, what they do, it's a makeup thing really, and we had to work out a technique to do it. But basically, what they do is they pull you there and there and there, and so that basically removes your lines and there, and a longer hair, which helps cover up certain things. It also helps cover up the tabs on your neck, and then you just basically change your posture and attitude. So the attitude becomes much younger. And that was the Peter episode, which was one of the all-time favourites of Fringe. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful episode.
Just wondering, as a slightly older actor, having like
You.
a kind of a second. Well,
Couldn't be talking about me.
How does it feel having kind of like a second, well, not a second flush, but kind of having, interest from people who've perhaps not seen your stuff before, and suddenly you're it's kind of like moving into not to a different field, but you've been been able to do different things. I mean, how do you feel?
I think it's a very positive story, because we never know, do we? And you know how we can get through periods of our life and we think we get depressed, or we go down the thing, oh, I've turned 40, my life's over, whatever you think. This can happen to all of us. And, you keep slogging on and sticking to certain principles. Somehow hope lives eternal.
Yes.
But really, I'd had a good career until I was about 49, 50, but it was, it was in Australian film and mainly theatre.
Yes.
And then Lord of the Rings came along, and that presented me to the world, and that's kind of what you need, is that. And then of course it's history, but very lucky. And then also America's been very kind to me, because it's enabled me to spread my wings, to do other things, to do the voice work that I've been doing there, and I've presented a show there for Science Channel. So it's a big market, so there was room for me. So I feel incredibly lucky, but I think it's a testament to not giving up, because all of us can get to the stage where we say, that's it, I'm tired, I've had it, I'm finished, look at my face, it's not what it used to be. But it's an attitudinal thing. It really is an attitudinal thing. And in my business, age is not an inhibitor, provided you're fit. And that's a factor. You have to get physically fit.
Speaking of that topic, Maggie Gyllenhaal recently made a lot of comments about this, about feeling that being told comments that she was too old to play. What would you respond to that issue with
women?
Sexism to women getting older?
I would respond in this way. That's a kind of I don't want to be too insulting about that attitude, but it exists in the youth culture. But I do remember looking at the list of Emmy nominees a few years ago, and they're all women in their 40s and 50s, and I thought, someone's telling the wrong story here. So those actors, female actors, that can stay with it are now having really fantastic careers. And the actresses we love most are those women in their 40s and 50s, and a crop of very good young ones now in their 30s, or even 40s, but we still think we're young. So it's changing.
Do you believe there is longevity then, if you're not like a Judi Dench, traditionally classically trained?
I believe there is, if you're a very good actor. If you're a very good actor. If you've gone through your life believing that I'll cruise through this because I'm beautiful and hot and all that, then it won't last. For a boy or a girl. Thank you very much. I was hoping someone would say that.
You can pay me later.
Yeah, I've done that too. On the stage I had to play a crossdresser once. But the worst part about it was he had to come on stage, and I had to put all this weight on for it, and he had to come on naked in the first scene, and it was so shocking. And it doesn't matter what it was, but it's certainly a good way to lose your ego.
Obviously, you're a very good voice actor. Do you see yourself moving forward with projects?
Whatever comes along. I enjoy doing voice work. I do, but I don't sort of think that's my direction in life, because that's never worked for me in the past. It's sort of be available to what comes along. And I enjoy doing it very much. But I went through a long period where I couldn't get a voice job to save my life. I started off in radio drama, but then I couldn't get anyone to look at me, and then came back into it again. So you just got to somehow or other put one foot in front of the other, and as I said, hope can spring eternal, and if you keep that attitude, who knows? what doors will open.
Are you able to fund like smaller films now? I recently saw you in The Mule. That's what you're absolutely amazing in that.
Thank you. Yeah, playing an Aussie. He's a bit of rough trade, wasn't he?
You're the nicest guy in the world, and it seemed quite funny to see you being.
Oh well,
Walter
I
White.
had the good fortune to work with Hugo Weaving, who was actually probably the nicer guy than me, and he was playing a monstrous character in it. So that's just fun. There's no money in that sort of stuff. You do it because it's interesting work. It's something different. And oh, look, honestly, having the chance to work with Hugo, for example, who I admire much, and I'd never worked face-to-face with him before. That comes into it sometimes. Did another show back in Australia at the same time, a very successful miniseries called Devil's Playground, which has just won all the awards. But apart from being a superb story, I was working with these people that I'd held in esteem all my life, great Australians like Jack Thompson. You may not know who it is, but these were they're gods to me. And you get to do that as I got to work with Leonard Nimoy, for example. You think this would never happen, but it did.
Talking about your voice work, you've just recently took part in the new Batman game. What experience was that like?
You should have come to the panel. We've just finished doing it.
We've been stuck up here.
Oh, and with me in the Batmobile. Oh, that to enter that franchise, which has such sets its bar so high. Rocksteady sets its bar higher, and it has to. I think it does. So I knew that I was working with, obviously, a very successful franchise, but with incredible creative people, it reminds me. I'll tell you what it reminds me of. When I did Lord of the Rings, the first thing that struck me was how high the bar was, and how everyone gave service completely to Peter Jackson's dream. That I'd never seen before. There were no complaints, nothing. Everyone went that far. And I had the same feeling about this, that everything was just pitched so high. And these creators did not want to put a game out that had a flaw in it at all. So they'd 3.5 years on. I've been 2 and a bit on it. And so it's about to be released. So we're all...
Will you be playing it at all?
I don't know. I don't know how to. That's giving my age away.
Scarecrow, maybe you want Batman to lose, so you just let him keep dying so you win. Maybe.
Yeah, I know. No. Batman's a fantastic... Scarecrow's a fantastic character, believe me. But that's the end of that. That's the trilogy completed. Although I've just been talking to the fellas down there, and they said, we're going to work on another show together. And I said, sure, let me know. I'll be in that. I just admire them so much, though.